So with this in mind, having these deep primordial questions, what happened? And in the Second Vatican II's document Nostra Aetate, we see, throughout history, even to the present day, there is found among different peoples a certain awareness of a hidden power, which lies behind the course of nature and the events of human life. At times, there is present even a recognition of a supreme being, or still more of a father. Now, this is very important, actually, and we'll see that this idea of a supreme being is something that is found in most every religion, whether it's primitive or developed. But specifically, this understanding of who God is as Father, we can find within Judaism. And we're going to look at that in the way that the children of God, Israel, Jerusalem's people there, the Jewish people, had this covenantal relationship, and they began to understand who God was as a Father, they as His children. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But here, the Catholic Church is talking about the grand scheme and the big picture of the human person with these deep questions, and we see that religion is the response. So this awareness and recognition results in a way of life that is imbued with a deep religious sense. And the religions which are found in more advanced civilizations endeavor by way of well-defined concepts and exact language to answer these questions. And then they're going to give a number of examples of these developed religions. Hinduism, we'll see, Buddhism, which is a way of life, Islam, Judaism. Those are some of the main religions, and they're going to talk about it here. So thus in Hinduism, men explore the divine mystery and express it both in the limitless riches of myth and the accurately defined insights of philosophy. They seek release from the trials of the present life by ascetical practices and profound meditation and recourse to God in confidence and love. Buddhism in its various forms testifies to the essential inadequacy of this changing world. It proposes a way of life by which men can, with confidence and trust, attain a state of perfect liberation and reach supreme illumination either through their own efforts or by the aid of divine help. And so too other religions which are found throughout the world attempt in their own ways to calm the hearts of men by outlining a program of life covering doctrine, moral precepts, and sacred rites. And I love this phrase of calming the hearts of men. And I think that's what happens. When you look at the world religions, you see some very advanced, very complex forms, which are going to have very developed doctrines, numerous moral precepts, and sacred rites. So for me, having grown up in the Dakotas, my mother was teaching at the Native American school, and so we were exposed to a lot of the origin stories of the Native American peoples, and you would see aspects of doctrine, a way in which they would live their life, a code of ethics, and sacred rites in their ceremonies and their dances. And this is very common when you look at even the ancient Near Eastern religions and even some of the common religions of today. It is very much part of what it means to try to calm our hearts, to put this thing called life and our desires into structures. And those religious structures helped people to cope and to come to grips with where they are in the grand scheme of this thing called life. Well, the Catholic Church, it says in this document, rejects nothing of what is true and holy in these religions. Now, that might be a surprise to some of you who are inclined to think that if they're not Catholic, overtly Catholic, then they're all going to hell in a handbasket. But this is a very important part for us to understand when it comes to interreligious dialogue, starting with you're a heretic or you're basically, going to hell. I mean, that's really not going to do much in terms of reaching people. And so the church rejects nothing of what is true and holy in these religions. She has a high regard for the manner of life and conduct and precepts and doctrines, which, although differing in many ways from our own teaching, nevertheless often reflect a ray of that truth which enlightens all men. And I love that phrase, it might reflect a ray of that truth. And I would say this, that there are many people within different religions who with that ray of God's truth, are living life more to the full than many of us who've been given the fullness of God in the Catholic faith. And so, yet she proclaims, the Catholic Church proclaims, and is in duty bound to proclaim without fail, Christ, who is the way and the truth and the life. In him, in whom God reconciled all things to himself, men find the fullness of their religious life. And so here's a simple way to look at it. The Catholic Church looks around and sees that the human person has this common thread. God is our creator. He is our Father. We are his children. We are longing to know what it is that our place is in this world. We have these deep questions that God allows us to wrestle with. the world trying to come to grips with it comes to the conclusion there must be a supreme being, a higher power, and some even deduce that he is Father. And as they develop and grow, trying to put things into its proper place, they have specifics on ritual, on doctrine, on moral application. And the Catholic Church is going to look at the world and they're going to say, oh, fantastic, how beautiful. This is an excellent way in which a person can live. But we are in duty bound to present Christ as the way, the truth, and the life. Why? Because Jesus is the way and the truth and the life. And that is a pretty radical turning point when it comes to this overarching view. It's not all roads leading up to the top of the mountain. It's just a bunch of different ways. There is one way and one truth and one life, but we will acknowledge that there are many people living heroically, even at times, far more full and beautiful lives with that ray of truth than some of us who've been given it all.